And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review. And this is Astronavigatrix from, that's right, Astronavigatrix. She is from Kofefe and Donuts and is really doing pretty well, actually. Always gets really high in fleet. So she's a bit concerned about the changes coming with fleet. And then also arena rank, wants to get into the top 50 or so. And so kind of looked through all of your stuff. We're going to talk about that, kind of what's to come with ships. What should you be focused on in ships? How can you get into the top 50 with arena? Like which characters do you need to bring to the table to find it? And then kind of who to focus on. You're kind of working on resistance right now, kind of finishing them off, which is great. Who next should you focus on? So we're going to start with ships. So we're going to go ahead and go into your inventory. As far as ships go, you're using the right team and you're doing really well. But when this changes, you're going to have a number of ships that are going to be important. And one of the capital ships when I played 3v3 that I really liked was actually Home 1. And also the Chimera with Thrawn is a really great capital ship. And so Home 1 needs to be developed and Chimera needs to be developed, and that will include their crew members of Admiral Akbar and Thrawn. Now, when we're looking at this, we see Thrawn in the blue gear, so like gear 6. That's a problem. That's a big deal. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but we're going to finish off talking about team compositions for 3 versus 3 in hopes that this helps you out. So I still recommend you develop Akbar and Thrawn. Those are going to be a couple of leaders that you're going to really want to use in ships. But Biggs is still going to have an ability in the game to be a good tank. Same with Sunfac, but your Biggs is really amazing and maxed out and really good. And so this is going to be probably in your first 3 when you launch, and it's a really great ship for that initial 3. Another ship that works really well in your initial 3 is a ship I don't even see, and that is Biston. Biston's ship goes stealth, does target lock, it has unavoidable damage, and there's new abilities coming in on it with the 3v3 update as far as that goes. And so Biston is absolutely amazing. Now, the good news is that part of this team also has Millennium Falcon in it, and you have a 4-star Millennium Falcon with the crew members gearing up, which is awesome. So keep finishing that gear like you said you were. And that having Biggs, Biston, and Millennium Falcon with an Akbar lead, those first 3, it really starts out offensively pretty hard, hitting, pretty awesome. And then you can bring in other ships, and a couple of ships that I would recommend considering to look at would be ships such as the Phantom 2, Ghost, but more specifically the Phantom 2. There's some new abilities that are coming out with 3v3. By the way, I'm filming this before 3v3 gets launched, so when this video comes out, it'll have already been a thing, but I can't discuss yet when I'm filming this what they are. But Phantom is going to be a phenomenal backup. In fact, it'll be my recommendation for your number 1 backup. And then we're going to go to the next couple. Oh, by the way, while we're here, Cassian's U-Wing is going to be another good backup ship. So there's that, and Cassian's U-Wing looks pretty decent for you right now. And then Plo Koon's ship is actually a phenomenal ship, and with the rework, there's a bunch of really cool things happening with the hardware abilities going away and the reinforcement abilities coming. And I'll just say Plo Koon is like Phantom. They have some of the coolest reinforcement abilities in the game, provided they're the same as they were when I tested it. So I would highly recommend Plo Koon and the Phantom getting developed. Of course, Cassian, and of course your Poe Dameron X-Wing, and you can also pick other characters that you happen to have. The Geonosians, I noticed, are kind of low on the totem pole for you. That team of 3, Sunfac, the Spy, and the Geonosian Soldier, those 3 are going to have a ton of synergy and be probably the second best meta team out there. And so those are 3 to consider as well. But the ones I really recommend is Biggs, which you already have, the Akbar lead, Millennium Falcon, which you have and have developed most of the way, but Bistan is going to become a really amazing ship in that combo of the front 3, and then Phantom, Plo Koon, Cassian, and Poe Dameron in your back lineup. With those 4 would be a really good combination for the like back 4 slots. You can still use an Empire team with like TIE Advanced and TIE Reaper, and then like using First Order TIE Fighter. Those teams work all right. They're not terrible, but there are still some really fun alternate combos out there, such as the Geonosians or the teams that I mentioned. So those are the thoughts on the future meta for fleet, and we're just going to have to play it out to really figure it out. But those ships that I mentioned that you don't have developed, I would definitely develop, specifically Biston and Plo Koon's ship. Those are two that I would really get on, as well as the Phantom 2. Those three are probably going to be the top three for you to really focus on while you're continuing to develop the rest of those ships that I mentioned. But as far as arena goes, the regular arena, your team isn't bad, and right now that's kind of the best team comp that you can make with what you have. But you did mention you're getting General Kenobi really soon, and so General Kenobi is going to be obviously a plug-and-play character into that team, and you can put him in there. And then also you can replace so you replace Poe Dameron with Kenobi, tank for tank. And then for Rey Scavenger, you can actually put in Thrawn. Now that's where I started to notice things fall off really quickly in your lineup. I started looking at all your characters, and like First Order Executioner, Baze Malbus, man, there's lots of like good characters down here. But I noticed Grand Admiral Thrawn just kind of thrown away in the bottom, 5-star, gear 6, sitting down there with like Jawa Scavenger and Jawa Engineer. Like, I know you can't develop everybody because you're a Dolphin. You've only played 8 months, so you're new. But this is just one of those characters that you really, 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 really need. He is, in my opinion, the #1 best dark side character in the game. If somebody said, here is the most overpowered character in the game, develop him, I would hope that you would take that advice and get him developed up. Now, you have him 5 stars. He's totally viable at 5 stars everywhere except for the very, very end of territory battles and of course the Sith raid. But why don't you have him 7 stars? Well, that leads us to the new thing where you said, what should I focus on? Because you wanted to focus on something after Resistance and didn't kind of know where you were going. So I started at the very beginning, went through my pillar system, and the first pillar that I talk about is kind of a Rebels pillar. And when I look at your Rebels, I see a lot of opportunity. There's 3 types of Rebels that you really need to focus on: the old school Rebels to get CLS, your Phoenix to get Thrawn, and your Rogue One for territory battles. I'm going to make Rogue One the least important right now. 1, because they're pretty well developed, and 2, they're not as important as Thrawn and Luke. Thrawn and Luke are very important. Now, between Thrawn and Luke, you have Thrawn unlocked, so you can start to gear him up, okay? So I'm going to make Luke the most important character right now to focus on. So when you switch your focus from Resistance, you're going to switch to a CLS focus, which is Luke Skywalker, and you're going to focus on the old school Luke because you need to get him to 7 stars. The other thing is you're going to have to get their abilities probably to level 7, and you're going to have to throw some decent mods on these characters because your gear isn't very high on any of these characters. You've got a gear 7 Obi-Wan. Your R2-D2 does look good, but a gear 8 Stormtrooper Han, a gear 6 Princess Leia, you're going to have to raise that up. A gear 8 Luke Skywalker, the farm boy Luke Skywalker. So these characters just really aren't ready yet. You need the star count for Luke Skywalker Farm Boy and some gear you're going to have to add on Luke Skywalker Farm Boy, Princess Leia, and probably another piece on Old Ben. And that way you can get CLS. That would be my #1 recommendation. The second would then be to move back to Phoenix and finish them off so you can get Thrawn. Now, I know you're kind of a baby Dolphin. You don't spend a ton of money, and so because of that, you don't want to put that much energy into the Phoenix. I would say gear 8, which you're almost there on 4 out of the 5 characters. And then I would say, because of farming capability, Hera and Ezra. And for now anyway, don't worry about Sabine. She's kind of one of the harder ones to get. So I would focus on finishing the stars on Hera and Ezra. And when Thrawn comes back around, make sure these guys are all basically gear 8. Gear 8, 7 star, put some decent mods on them and get their abilities all to level 7. And then Omega, the uniques if you can, and Omega Hera's leadership if you can. And this team should work out well enough to get you a 7-star Thrawn. But first, let's get Luke. Got to get him, right? You got to get him to 7 stars. It's the only way you can unlock him. And then you can work on Phoenix after that. And then after that, I would go back to Rogue One so you can kind of develop that team for territory battles and territory wars. So there's just a lot of rebels that I'm going to recommend. And I know that's probably not the direction that you were hoping for or wanting, since Resistance is what you've been working on. You're probably wanting some dark side focus, but really, in my opinion, the best cat in the game for dark side is Thrawn, and you've got to get these guys up if you're going to get your Thrawn. And Luke, CLS Luke, is going to help you solo the Rancor and help you solo the Hat, and he's a great character for territory battles and territory wars, and you can use him in the Sith raids. So just so much capability. But for 8 months, you've done really, really well. I just think that you're probably not a huge fan of all of the rebels, but you've got to kind of go back, revisit these different rebels, the old school rebels, Phoenix and R1, Rogue One. All right, and last thing I'm just going to do is revisit Arena, because I kind of, after telling you about that, not sure if I very clarified what you needed to do, but the trio that you're using with Rey Jedi Training and R2 and BB-8, the soccer ball, keep those 3 in the top 3. And then in the back 2, you're going to want to replace eventually those back 2 slots, and there's a couple of combos. One would be General Kenobi and Thrawn, but you obviously need to finish unlocking General Kenobi, and then you're going to need to gear up Kenobi and Thrawn. But Thrawn is extremely important in Arena right now. He gives you a ton of control. You really need that. The other combo I've seen in my top 5 that does very, very well against the current meta is the trio that you're using. And in the back 2, they actually use Thrawn and Wampa. Now, Thrawn and Wampa both do a ton of damage. They both regenerate protection. They both counter. So they're both really, really great. Now you're saying, well, we don't have a tank if we do that. And that's true. And that's where they actually throw a Zeta on their BB-8 for his taunting capability. And man, I'm telling you, that is a very difficult team to beat, even with my overpowered Empire team with all the Zetas that I have. My team's like 112, over 112,000 power. Really good, decent mods, and I still really struggle beating that Jedi Training raid team. It's definitely the hardest one that I face with Thrawn and Wampa. Now you're probably going, I don't have Wampa, and that is what I'm going to recommend. Is the last thing I do before I leave is suggest to you that you put all of your guild currency, all of it, into Wampa. Pour it into him and get him up. He is phenomenal everywhere in the game. You're not going to regret it. You're going to look back and go, man, I'm really glad that I did that. And if you're already going for Wampa, then great. Just keep on keeping on. Now, Astronavigatrix, that's a mouthful, and Kofefe and Donuts, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. You're doing really well as a dolphin for only 8 months. Looks really, really great. Shout out to everybody. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below, or hit me up on Discord, on the private Discord, if you have any questions. And represent the females out there. You're doing great representing. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.